Board meeting for June 9th to order. Let the record reflect that all three commissioners are present, and it's a very abbreviated agenda for today, and there are no public hearings. So Chair is open to a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item 1, including all sub-items thereunder on today's 2 p.m. consent agenda.
I will second that motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Record reflect the motion passes unanimously. Wow, we smoked through that one.
Record, less than a minute. Less than 1 minute.
That wasn't even long enough to take a time on it. Jeez. So this is a continuation of our discussions this morning. I did have a conversation with Cindy during the noon hour, and she has joined us to answer any questions. I did share with her generally our conversations from this morning, and also that we are anticipating receiving samples of the cloth face mask first the next week, and based upon that, then we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go with regard to the face mask. And then I did have a brief conversation with Cindy about the supplier in Cheney, and I did check with Carrie Griddall, and I think we're good to go there. So thank you for raising the issue, and but I think we've addressed it and comfortable with the address and stuff. So where we left off the conversation this morning was we were reviewing the spreadsheet that Tony had prepared. And Tony, were you able to update your spreadsheet and get all the numbers to where they equaled 0?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. I'm just about to share it up on the screen here.
Okay.
There it is. All right. All right. So thanks again, Mary, for pushing me to review the numbers and making sure they're accurate. I did need some extra time to make sure I grasped everything that was going on there. So now I feel comfortable with these numbers, these quantities. What we talked about this morning was our current quantity that we have up here, and then I've added an additional table down here with Cindy and her guidance on a different quantity breakup, I would say, on here. So I've changed a few things. I talked to Cindy. She was able to find even better pricing on gloves, down to 3 cents a glove. So that really reduced our pricing on that. So here is our new outlook, if you guys just want a minute to sit and review.
Okay, so are you looking at the top or the bottom?
So the top is what we were discussing earlier. This has been our plan for the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 weeks on what we're going to order. Below is Cindy's suggestion of how much they would want to order.
Okay.
So for the benefit of Cindy, the conversation this morning was that we would consider moving forward with everything on this chart based upon Tony's revision of the numbers and updating. We can take an action on that conceivably this afternoon and get that product underway, and reserve the decision on the cloth face mask until Monday, when we actually had a sample of the product that is on order and stuff. So is there any one of the board members want to add to that, or did I misstate that?
No, I think that says it right. So yeah, what was kind of happening this morning is, you know, Tony had his pricing schedule and items, and I just wanted to make sure that we kind of melded the two together. And then as we were doing that, you know, I knew we were, you know, Tony was being awesome and trying to figure it all out, for us on the fly, but I knew maybe having a little bit of time to make sure all the formulas were right and all of that was going to be good. So if I'm correct, then the GSI quantity with best pricing, the 1 million, that's kind of where I think we want to be at, because you wanted to be at that 15,000 businesses, So I just making sure, Tony, that's, if we blended your numbers and Cindy's numbers together, that's where we're at, is at the 1,070,000.
Yep, in each one, I'm using the best pricing possible, whether it's something that I sourced or something that Cindy was able to get a really good lead on. So the pricing is the same on both. The only difference is the suggested quantities.
Okay.
It looks like, as I'm eyeballing it here, the two differences are 5,000 gallon difference in hand sanitizer and 22,000 difference in gloves.
The gloves is a major difference, and that doesn't have to be, that we can tone that down, that quantity down quite a bit, because if you notice, Tony's only at 2 million and we're at 7.5 million. So that can be a significant, and surprisingly enough, I mean, gloves are one of the more expensive pieces of PPE and the hardest to source right now, which probably is indicative of price. But that can be something that we can take that down if we want to. The supplier that I found packages them in groups of 50. And so we can easily kind of separate those out and do 100 or 200 per business if we wanted to do that. I think the original, how I got to 7.5 was, I think our original lowest supplier had them in boxes of 250. And so we were going to do 2 boxes per business. Or if that was one, but that can be, we can take that down considerably if you'd like to get under $1 million, depending on how much you want to do. These are disposable gloves again. So these are not, the whole goal was, if you have a glove on and you wear it all day long, you're really doing nothing. You might as well just wash your hands. These are the disposable, more of a one-time use type of, if anybody's ever volunteered at concessions for high school games or whatever, it's just kind of the one time on, take them off, put on another glove to keep everything very clean. So this is that type of glove.
So, and I know Mary asked a question earlier to confirm. So are these your standard sort of latex rubber glove, or is it more of a plastic glove?
It's the plastic, really thin, disposable, one size fits all type of glove. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. And I don't know why, does this come down to box size? But I see for disposable mask, it's quantity per unit, 50. Total unit is 40,000 for both. Price is the same, but then total quantity differs at 2 million or 1.5. Or
50 masks.
Yeah, that was just a matter of forecasting.
Okay. So, because I know everything's the same except to the total quantity number there for the disposable masks. Was that intentional or is that a typo? Because you've got the same quantity per unit, same total unit number in both.
Oh, correct.
But then total quantity is the only thing.
This should be different. Yeah, the price is correct. I need to change the total units.
Okay.
So the masks, you would be doing about 100 of them per business. And on the GSI, on Tony's breakdown on the GSI piece, that would reflect about 100 masks per business. The gloves would be 500 per business. So we can reprice and do 250 gloves per business. And I'm assuming these numbers are indicative of staying with businesses that are 19 and fewer employees. And I know there was discussion yesterday about maybe taking that up to 49, but it looks like to me that the decision was made to stay with 19 and fewer.
Yes, for me, I think that's the important piece. Now on the gloves, so if they're like the food ones that are kind of, what I'm seeing in restaurants now is kind of those black gloves that are, kind of a little tighter versus the really loose ones that you sometimes see like at the high school concessions. Which ones we're looking at, Cindy? Sorry.
Ours, the GSI ones are the more of your concessions glove, the one-time use. easy to put on, easy to take off,
Okay. You
kind
know,
of short-term use.
also has gloves as well. You know, I use them all the time for washing dishes, just to use them that way. Okay.
Here they
Thanks,
are,
Tony.
here, Mary.
Thanks,
Okay.
Tony.
Oh,
I probably would not order as much of those. I think those are going to be harder for people to use. The ones that are a little more, that have the, you know, medium or large size. So I feel like
Tony,
Tony's number would be a better number than the GSI number, because that's a lot for those kind of gloves.
Tony, the type of glove that you were pricing, was that the same type of disposable glove this is, or was it a little higher quality and more of a longer term
It was
use?
Yeah, it was more of like a medical grade nitrile glove
And you had it at 6.5 cents per glove?
each. Yep.
Each glove. Okay. Well, for that price difference, that's not a lot, to be honest, because gloves can get really expensive really fast. Do you have a picture of of your glove by any chance, Tony?
I do not, no.
Okay. I mean, my suggestion would be if you want to invest in a glove that is not a single time use type of glove like this, you can lower the quantity, and we can go with a 6.5 cents per glove. It should be, you know, if you'd like to do that, I think that's a good option for you.
Or half and half or something similar.
We could do that too. And I would say we could decrease the amount per business that we're ordering of this disposable one to, you know, even like 200 instead of 500, get that price down quite a bit, and then factor in doing a box of, I don't know, how many quantities did yours come in, Tony? 100 or 100 per box?
Yes.
Okay. And I think your pricing would be about the same. We can run that real quick for you, but I think in general, knowing that the number of establishments is agreed upon, we're going with 15,000, which is a roundup from 14,900 and whatnot, but that is, or 14,610. That's off of ESD's site from March of 19 on a number of establishments with 19 or fewer employees. That's what these numbers are all based on. So it'd be really helpful to make sure that that's agreed upon by the commissioners. So when we do go to define this plan, that's how we put it out to our businesses.
And one question we had earlier today was the quantities that you have here, is that a monthly demand or is that like a 6-month plan? What exactly was that based on?
There's really no defined burn rate, is what Commissioner French was talking about yesterday, because each business is so different. If you have a business that's going to be at your 19 employees that is in food and service, they're going to burn through this within 30 days. Easy. You're going to have other businesses that a gallon of the sanitizer is going to last them until next January. So if you look at kind of the average, it was, okay, what can we do to supply our highest use businesses with a 30-day supply? And a lot of this supply will last longer than 30 days. The goal is get these businesses that have barriers to reopening, get them this so it's one less thing to worry about, to get their doors open, knowing that this is not a sustainable PPE plan for the rest of the challenge of COVID. This is a short-term, get them up and running and get our businesses to understand what it is that we want our businesses to look like, to increase confidence from the consumer perspective and the employee perspective of how to do it right and what's the most important pieces of their safety plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like I have the Kirkland signature gloves that are 200 multi-purpose gloves per, you know, box. So I guess that's kind of they're the nitrile, you know, gloves, but they're non-latex. So I have no idea what
Yeah,
I paid for it a while ago.
that's the same ones that I was quoting.
Okay, so and they come in different sizes, you know, kind of like, I mean, I wouldn't go any smaller than a medium or a large, I don't know. Do yours come in sizes, Tony, or was it one size?
Yeah, small, medium, large, same thing. We just order assorted sizes. I got to run and grab a phone charger real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So while Tony's gone, what I heard with listening was that we're not yet on the same page with regard to what size businesses we're trying to reach out to. The original presentation was for, I think it was 20 employees or less, or 15 employees or less, and the gross up from that was 49 employees or less. So which size companies are we going to reach out to? Is it the lower level or the upper level?
I guess how many businesses do we have, Cindy? So it's an additional 1,342 businesses, basically 1,400 businesses if I'm looking at your spreadsheet.
Yeah, there was, why did I just put it aside?
I mean, to be honest,
We had, yeah, 1,342 additional businesses, but you're gonna have an additional 41,000 employees. So you would want to increase the number of gloves that you were supplying and the number of masks. And maybe one additional gallon of sanitizer. So some of those things you definitely want to increase, because I think for 19 employees, giving them, 100 or 200 gloves is going to be sufficient. But if you are talking about having up to 49 employees, then you definitely need to revisit the quantity of what you're going to be providing in gloves and masks.
and your thoughts, Cindy, on if we go above the 19, I mean, how many businesses, really are needing that versus have already purchased a lot of this?
I mean, if you're looking at 1,350 in the county, and some of those, what types of businesses those are, your restaurants are going to be a mixed bag. Some of them are going to have separate UBI numbers for separate locations. Some of them may have one UBI number. So this could incorporate some of our restaurant groups that have multiple locations, some small manufacturers, and potentially some retail, because these numbers are based off of Social Security numbers, not FTE. And so this could pull into some of that category. Now, if you had some of them have, these larger retailers have their own supply chains because they're franchise. So my guess is, I mean, if I just had to take a guess, I'd say you're probably somewhere around 500 businesses that this could potentially help if you increase that up. I don't know if that is just a total ballpark figure.
Right.
But I do think try and serve up to 49 employees, you're definitely going to want to look at the different quantities of what you're providing.
And when you and Mike were, had your task force and you guys were looking at this, what were your thoughts as to the need for the business community?
The task force did discuss this, and they were pretty adamant that you stay at 19 and fewer employees. The goal necessarily wasn't the financial aspect. It was, is this program, from their perspective, is the program one that is truly trying to target the smaller businesses that potentially have barriers to sourcing PPE at a decent price. And so that was why they felt that the recommendation stay at 19 and fewer employees.
Okay. Thank you for that, because I hadn't asked you that question before. So I don't know, I guess, we're purchasing it. I think I'd like to stay at the 19 and under, but we certainly, if someone who's a bigger company needs it, they can just call and talk to us, and then we can give it to them. It's just because we're saying it's, we're purchasing quantities for 19 and under. If somebody really needs it, then they can come and talk to us, if they do. So, I mean, I think these are good quantities to start with, and if we need to reorder, we can reorder. That's I guess how I feel about it.
We can, if you're looking at a timeline, I mean, ideally, some of this we could source probably within 7 to 10 days, but some of them we may not. So it's probably more realistic to look at the week of, it looks like the gloves, if we move toward Tony's gloves, Tony, I think we can get your gloves faster than we can my source.
Within 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay. So we could look at distributing no later than the week of the 29th. Within a week, we should know what the demand looks like and have a pretty good sense of coming into the 4th of July. Should we And if you haven't spent all of your CARES money by the 4th of July, we could always come back and I don't know what your plan is, but we could look at this and say, do we need to increase this to more businesses? Did we really shut a lot out? What's the feedback we're getting? Liberty Lake had 130 businesses. Yes. Yeah, they had a pretty good demand yesterday for their supply. So I do think that the businesses still are, even though the supply chain has opened up, businesses are very appreciative, and I think they're still very much wanting to get the product.
Josh, what direction do you want to go in?
I mean, the biggest question is, what is the demand going to be from the businesses? And I mean, my gut kind of tells me before we necessarily know what the demand is. I mean, part of me wants to open it up to businesses larger than 19. I feel we're punishing businesses that have grown, to larger businesses and saying, well, now you've gotten too big to get this benefit, that we're offering to the, to the smaller businesses. So I mean, I'm kind of apt to say open it up to 49 and lower, and if we have a run on it and there is a huge demand, then we go out and we buy more. I mean, this is, I think our conversation yesterday, if I remember, I don't remember who said it, but I mean, essentially it's about protecting the public, and it's about getting face masks on folks that need it. It's about getting gloves on folks that need it, and sanitizing hands to prevent the spread of disease. And I mean, do we want to do that to as many people as possible, or limit it? And I'd hate for us to see some sort of outbreak at a facility that didn't qualify to get these items from us. So, I mean, I think that as many folks as we can get this out to, the better. So, I mean, if that means spending more money, well, PPEs and hand sanitizers, I think, is one of the most basic things for this money to be spent on. I'd be willing to spend more to help protect more people and more businesses.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I go back to our original conversation when we were talking about the CARES funding, and it's always been about how do we get the greatest number of people back to work, and so the difference between 19 and 49 is an arbitrary number. We're not going to know exactly how this is going to be distributed and stuff until we start, and we don't know how many companies are going to take advantage of it until we start. And so it seems to me like maybe we should start, and this is a good place to start at. So, we're going to learn as we go through this, whether we've ordered too little, too many, but even if we ordered too many, we got 7 months to be able to consume it. So, okay, we overshoot the mark out of the first order. Okay, it takes us 2.5, 3 months to consume it instead of 1. Big deal. But I'd rather have too many and be able to make sure we get people back to work than to have too few and then have to come back and have an oh dear God moment that we got people that can't go back to work because the company can't afford to get the resources necessary to keep their employees safe. So I'd say let's bump it up to the 49 and just monitor it and see how it goes. And then we'll learn in the next several weeks what we need to do for the next order.
If you want to bump up to 49, I did some initial calculations last night. And again, we're not investing in the higher price cloth masks, but I think that if you want to go up to 49, I'm not sure your goal today is if you wanted to vote on a specific, like down to the cent dollar amount, or if you wanted to vote on a program and have a cap on it. But if I feel pretty comfortable that you could vote for a cap, now this seems a lot, but if you want to do 49 employees, I do feel like if you allocated, say you wanted to do 1.75 or $2 million, because I looked at the additional cost as around $600,000 to go from 19 to 49. That included cloth, that was the higher priced cloth masks. That included, I tripled the amount of the gloves and masks, because if you go from 19 employees to 50, you could double or triple. And so I did some of that calculation on tripling that. And I believe I don't believe we did any additional hand sanitizer. So I think that you should at least double that and do 2 gallons. But again, that's only for a certain number of businesses. You don't do that for all of them. So I really think for, in general, and especially if we're doing much cheaper cloth masks, you could allocate, you could do a program well under 1.75, potentially even 1.5 if we were really tight. Give us a top dollar amount, and Tony and I can go back and really start working on these contracts and come back to you with an updated spreadsheet that we can get you guys to sign off on before anything's ordered, to see where we go. And we could, like we talked yesterday, not even ordering the total amount. We could always order half or 3/4 of it, depending on if we can get the same price, and see how things go, and work it that way.
So yesterday, when you were sharing with us numbers, you indicated that to go from 15 to 49, it would be basically 700,000. And we were working on per month estimates yesterday's conversation. So based upon the better pricing that we're getting here, if we were to bump the $1,070,000 to, let's round it off to $1,600,000, and that's a starting point. And then we'll come back in 3 or 4 weeks and make an assessment, find out, well, do we need to order more, or are we good? I mean, it's a starting point. There's no rocket science here. It's a starting point. So throw that out for your consideration.
Right.
Well, and I don't know what Tony's learning, but I'm learning from suppliers. Every day is different a little bit too on pricing and sourcing, and everybody's trying to get it. And so one day we think we've got the great price and the delivery date, and then the next day it changes. And so that makes me hesitate to have you vote down to a certain cent level, because we're going to go make a couple calls and something could be different the minute we leave the meeting.
Yeah, agreed. One thing I want to talk about too as well is there a specific reason for the disposable mask in such high quantities? Or are you guys open to a smaller amount of the cloth masks? So in between our meetings today, I reached out to a couple different local suppliers, and I got a quote for $1.54 per cloth mask, the same people that are supplying them for Gonzaga. So, I mean, I just did some quick math down here. We could actually reduce our spend on masks if we went the cloth route and just did 300,000 cloth masks would be 500,000. Or right now we're doing disposable 2 million for, $125,000 more. And my guess would be that the cloth mask would likely, they would keep us busy for a lot longer than 2 million masks would. Yes, ma'am. Mary?
Mary?
So I think that there's 2 purposes to the mask. The disposable ones, in my mind, and is kind of like what we have on the table there at the conference room. It's for people that are coming in and out that don't have a mask, on. It's, businesses. I know, like I went to the hairdresser, she had a box on her stand. So that way, if I didn't have a mask, I could put a disposable mask on. So I think for the businesses, it's for that purpose, for their clientele, versus the cloth masks or for the employees themselves. And that's why, not every business is going to have that type of clientele. Some do, some don't. And so that's why it's, we just have to see how this goes and what happens with it. It's like, we're not going to know. This is a science experiment. And,
yep.
We used the 1,500 to come up with some numbers, or 15,000 businesses to come up with some numbers. And those were based off FTE. And so I think, Cindy, you had everybody based off 19, employees FTE as full-time equivalents, so there could be more employees or could be less. So I mean, I don't have a problem going to the bigger businesses, but I think we've got enough quantity to get us started to see where we need to, what the demand is, and we can always order more.
Okay.
One thing that Tony,
sorry, Cindy. So I definitely want to we need to look at the cloth masks. So the pricing that you have, we're still going to have to, when we get the new sample for the cloth masks, we're still going to be wanting to purchase cloth masks for businesses.
I think that's a good consideration because you add that cost back in. Here's the difference between why you would do strategically cloth masks and or disposable. So yesterday when I reviewed the governor's mandate that started yesterday, and L&I is, in all my meetings, L&I has been very clear that they are going to enforce this, that every business is required to provide their employees with a cloth mask. And so that is a liability issue for our businesses. So just giving them disposable masks does not really satisfy what we want a business to look like and how we want our business owners to operate to abide by guidelines from the governor. So if you add in the cloth masks, yes, you look at your a little over $1 million into all of your point about if we just allocate a certain amount, you need to add that back in and look at potentially maybe even allocating like a 1.75 ceiling right now. Jared or Tony, I think we could decrease the total amount of the face masks to 186,000. You could do 2 per employee. Oh, never mind. I wanted to add that back in. So we've got 93,000 plus an additional 40,000, 41,000. So I'll look at that, but I think you're probably about right there. That's strategically where, and then the disposables for the customers. The governor's orders are that businesses need to have signage that requests that customers wear a mask. They are not required to make customers wear masks, but they are required to have a cloth mask specifically for their employees.
So does that change our desire then? If we look at the governor's mandate is that the employee have a facial covering, a fabric facial covering, but not necessarily that the customer does. Does anybody feel, does that make the cloth one more valuable in this purchase than the disposable one, that based on that makes it sound like it's more recommended rather than a mandate?
I don't think so, because I think you still need to have those disposable masks available at your location for any customer that comes into your location. So I think you're talking about supplies to help businesses. We need both.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we need to add cloth masks into this mix.
Right, but we're not going to add it in until we know which supplier we're going to use. I mean, that's why we know we're going to have the dollar amount in there, but until next week, I mean, so we can figure that out next week as to how many we really think we need for cloth masks, because we want to make sure that your supplier, what that actual sample looks like.
Okay.
Because that's what, Cindy, based on your discussion yesterday, I mean, there's just so many different.
I love samples for you guys. So first of all, Tony, I think 300,000 is probably a decent estimate if we're looking at businesses 49 and under. I came up with 268,000 employees, so we could lower that maybe a little bit. The pricing, we need to be careful, because if we want to include cloth, but we're going to wait and include the costs in our overall, ceiling budget, for $1. You say it was $1.75, Tony, for these masks?
$154.
$154. The cloth mask that I left you, and Mary, this is what AGC is using that they sourced from Cintas. This is super thin, very comfortable to wear because it's much easier to breathe through, but it's a 1-ply, it's not a 2-ply. You cannot put an additional filter in it. And if I were looking at it, because also in the governor's guidelines, there's guidance for the businesses that they have to ensure that they're clean and they're stored. And these types of masks and we may be surprised when we get the sample, but the cheaper ones that I've seen on the cloth side are probably going to last a couple of weeks if you do wash it every single day, which you're supposed to do. And so why I was quoting 2 cloth masks per employee was that the business then has, here's one to wear, here's one to wash. And so that's what makes the program so expensive. So you could just do the 1 mask, but we need to be prepared that, again, the 1 cloth mask we give them may not last 30 days, because if they're supposed to be washing it every day, I highly doubt that something as thin as what I left on the table yesterday is going to make it through 30 washes. then you bump up to your higher quality mask, which I think to get into a higher quality 2-ply fabric mask, the minimum you're going to look at is $3 from what I've seen, $2.75 to $3. The local manufacturer was $4.50 for ours, which was probably the highest quality I've seen, but I have seen some lower quality in the high 2s and low 3s for fabric. That though has to be sourced and shipped. The local would be obviously no shipping charge and available within 7 days. We could start getting a couple thousand, 1,000 to 5,000 masks easily.
Honestly,
Go ahead.
I would say, I mean, we're gonna have to, we get the other mask in to see. So, I mean, so I would, you guys can keep, having this discussion to figure out what we need to do on cloth masks, but I would agree. Jerry, what have we done with our county employees? Have we provided them with cloth masks?
They're coming. Yep, we are. We're gonna.
We got 6,000 on the way.
Okay.
We're gonna have enough to give each of our employees at least two.
Mhm.
And Tony and Gil have done a great job. They've got some masks on hand now, but we've got a large order that should be here. Tony, what did you say? Sometime Wednesday, Tuesday,
Early.
next week?
Yeah, early next week at the earliest, midway through next week at the latest.
There you go.
Okay. And then Cindy, to your comment on the ATC masks being thin, I mean, honestly, in some ways they're treating them like disposable masks. I mean, truly. So they're, you know, that's just the reality of some of the construction going on right now. So, so anyways, I just think, the cloth masks have time to, to figure that out. The only thing, when you guys hit the button to order, you usually have to have a delivery location. And so I just want to make sure that we have thought through that so we know exactly where those are going to get delivered to, because typically once you order, when I've done big things, it's, you don't get to change that delivery in the process. So we need to know, are we sending it out to the fairgrounds? So Gil, I want to make sure that we're all just clear where things are going so we can then distribute from there.
I thought it was being sent to Mary's office.
Exactly.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we talked about this
Build the
yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow. Was that before I got on the phone call this morning?
The other thing we need to keep in mind too is with the cloth mask, these aren't things that we're going to be able to pull off of the shelf. I mean, they're, especially if we get them locally, we got to allow for some time to manufacture them and stuff. And so what was the rate, Cindy, that you were talking about? They could produce the cloth mask at? It was like, what, 2,000 or 3,000 a day? Is that right?
K&L, the local manufacturer for the higher priced masks, though, that they could do 5,000 a week. I mean, we're looking at least 1,000 a day that he could ramp up, and we could have those within 7 days, and he can continue production. So a very known, very confident supply chain there for the expense. But if I look at, say we decide to go to 49 employees, we want to do all of the projected employees for businesses 49 employees and under with 2 fabric masks, that's going to be a little over $1 million just in that alone. So I want to give a heads up that that's not reflected in this budget if that is the direction that we would decide to go, because you could do a very inexpensive cloth mask that ends up being a very expensive disposable mask, or you can do one mask. We could go down and just do one mask per employee. But still, if we go up to 49 employees per business, that's a pretty significant expense to me, at least $500,000 at the very expensive fabric mask. So there's a whole wide range in there. Just know in your head when you're looking at projected cap, if we just want to do a cap on a budget, you add that in and you're probably looking at a $1.75 to $2 million comfortable cap to be able to absorb that additional piece. And the other thing I didn't see in this that Tony, I was just looking at is, when we were talking about delivery, and we do need to confirm if it's going to be the fairgrounds, Tony, I don't see any labor in this plan for a project manager, and I had included that. And so that may be a decision that you made this morning, that you didn't want to include labor and that you had sources of employees to manage this program, but that was something that is not in there. I just thought I wanted to bring to your attention.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm looking to, I guess, our commissioners on for guidance is, my portion of this was just to to provide, pricing for all of these items. As far as coordination, logistics, where we're going to do this, I'm kind of out of the loop on that one.
That's why we got Gil.
Still semi in the loop. So I think we have a plan. We can deliver them all to the fairgrounds, but one thing that Gil's looking into is the storage of 10,000 gallons, 15,000 gallons of hand sanitizer. So that's one thing he's working on.
Well, so right before the meeting, I got off, I had a phone conversation with Richard out of Cheney, and they are willing to really partner with us on a contract. And what they do is they can make the hand sanitizer in 1,000-gallon lots. And as we distribute it, they would make more and store more at their facility. They have gotten a variance to store it in their yard under an awning since it's in an open environment. But as far as that much gallonage inside a building, it would have to meet all the local code requirements. So we would only be able to take certain amounts of this product for immediate distribution. So in conversations with Richard, that group is willing to work with us. It'll just be a little bit of coordination between when we're actually going to distribute. We would have to set up specific times and actually put it in, really open locations so we could bring the product here and then distribute it.
Okay, well, you guys can work out the mechanics on that.
Yep.
So to sum up where we're at, we're still going to wait until Monday to make a decision with regard to the cloth mask, but we're going to move forward with purchasing the balance of the PP&Es predicated upon servicing small businesses with 49 employees or less. And did I miss anything?
And
My
I think the GSI quantity with the best pricing.
Yeah.
My recommendation is if you want to move up to 49 employees and give yourselves room for a cloth mask addition and labor, again, this is who's going to administer this program needs to be determined. I would feel most comfortable with a cap of $2 million. I mean, it's still around the same as yesterday's, a $2 million cap, but potentially maybe you could put in a motion for approvals of each purchase, line item in the purchase, and we can work with that. But in my head, I'm looking at a $500,000 kind of ballpark range when you go from 19 to 49 and you increase the supplies. Like I was recommending you do an additional, so you're looking at 30,000 gallons of hand sanitizer, 200, you've got to do more gloves. Oh, of course, sorry, that was not for all the businesses. So I do think probably a $1.75 to $2 million cap, if that's something you're comfortable with doing, versus doing a specific dollar amount, is how we could probably most comfortably move forward and get product ordered right away. And Gil and I, and Tony and Gil and I can work on contracts and see about additional sourcing and pricing in the meantime before Monday.
Well, I guess
I'm really seeing this as two decisions, not one. We'll make one decision to move forward with this. Then we'll make a second decision on Monday after we see the material and the makeup of the mask about what the quantity is and where we're going to buy the mask at. But really see this as two decisions, not one. We'll make one today to get started, and then the second one we'll make next week. Unless
Yeah, correct. Are we going with our initial demand here? Are we going with GSI, or do you guys want a hybrid? I guess that's our decision point today.
we're going with the GSI based upon the 49 businesses up to 49 employees, which I think is that lower one. Yeah, Mary?
so I think the lower one is based on the smaller number of businesses, but I think we're still okay ordering at this level because I think, not every business is going to come and get this from us.
Right. I think
So-
you still can be comfortable here, and I think you can even, yeah, the 7.5 million was quite, that's a large amount of gloves. And again, that's those are the one size fits all gloves, so we need to transition that to Tony's glove. And I think we can decrease the amount to somewhere between even a 3.5 million or a 5 million order on that easily, to absorb up to 49 employees and decrease that amount. And that'll decrease the total dollar amount there too.
Okay,
Okay,
Because
so
that is-
sticking with GSI, no additions. Like the mask, do you guys want to bump that up to 2 million or just stick with all of these for now? Call it good?
I would just stick with those for now. Other than I'm with Cindy where we need to get the gloves that are better quality gloves. And I wouldn't worry about a size small, I just do a medium and up.
So
Yeah,
Tony
that'll
can
probably
maybe
bump us up maybe 100,000.
update the gloves. I would say at the most 5 million, maybe even 3.5 million. We can put that down and do your pricing on your glove, which is 6.5 cents.
Yeah.
Because again, not all businesses are going to use gloves. You know, like at the county, we're not required to use gloves. We're not using gloves. I mean, I think it's again, you know, that's why I hate to go to the max number. You know, if we need more, we'll order more. I mean, to me, it's that simple, but we need to get started and we need to get going. So this is a great way to start and have some, you know, general ideas on numbers, and let's go from there.
I guess just 7.5 million is a lot more than we anticipated.
So I
you
would
guys
take that
fine if
down
we-
3.5. That's my
5,
suggestion.
3.5. Yeah.
Or you could go down to your original 2 million, Mary, if you felt on your guys' original numbers on glove, or 2 million, sorry.
But I mean, I don't have a problem going 3.5. I think we're, you know, you know, do we have to get a certain dollar amount, or do we just say, okay, based on kind of what we've talked about, I mean, go forth and purchase?
well, we
Yep.
have,
I think if we're all good with 3.5, let's go. That's good.
So we're going with 3.5 million gloves on GSI quantity, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we're going.
Yep, that's the only change.
Which is going to change the numbers a little bit, but you know.
Okay.
Okay, so
About $100,000.
Josh, are you comfortable enough to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to string something together here, and it may not be pretty, but we're gonna get through it. So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the authorization of spending CARES dollars to purchase hand sanitizer, gloves, disposable masks, as well as plexiglass in the 1/8 thick and 3/16 inch thick sheets, up to the quantities listed and presented by staff on the GSI suggested quantities in this spreadsheet today. I did up to, so in case you need to lower any of those numbers, you can. So I was trying to make the motion, give you the flexibility. If you think we're too high and you need to go below, you can, but not over.
And should we say with the best pricing source?
Oh yeah, no, the GSA quantities, but yes, absolutely with the best pricing that Cindy and Tony came up with.
I will second that.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect motion passed unanimously, and so we are going forth and doing great things. Thank you, Tony and Gil and Cindy, for helping us get through this. So hopefully the mask will be less painful, but we'll get to do it again on Monday, hopefully. So with that, then we have Mr. Haskell that's joining us, and this is, I understand it, a executive session.
Yes.
So
Do we have to log back in?
No, we'll just make sure everybody is off.
And we have to stop.
I'm